Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode tonight of Solitaire Gems. I am your host and your creator, Jacinta Martin, and of course, want to thank you so much for watching this. Um, as I said, I'm your host and I'm your creator, but I'm also the creator of a blog called Fruitful Gems, which really started this all, and a podcast called Polished Gems, and even this YouTube channel that you are on, where I am so excited that every Thursday night I get to share one gem, one nugget with you every week as well. So, let me tell you a little bit about Solitaire Gems. Solitaire Gems is a program where I'm going to share one gem with you. And tonight's gem is a helpful indicator to know and recognize that you are entering a new season. So, guys, I'm going to say that one more time. Tonight's one gem is on what is a helpful indicator, or how can you recognize that you're entering a new season? So, why do I do this? If you're just joining me or if you followed me before, I want to explain why I do this. I do this to teach people to rebuild, to heal, and become whole in their mind, body, and spirit using the nine fruits of God's Spirit. Why I do this and why I'm so passionate about this is because God did this for me. I've been through so much trauma in my past. I've been through seasons that I've just had to really push and even press through, where God has shown me that I can rebuild. He has helped me to rebuild myself, my mind, my body, and my spirit through the nine fruits of His. He's shown me that through His character traits, and that through His love, His kindness, His faithfulness, that I can even be the same, not only to myself, but even in how I interact with others. And it has changed my thought process and even including my world. So, guys, tonight, I just want to also give you a little bit more background about me as well. I have been blogging since 2016, and I am a two-time author of the following books. One of those books is called The Fragmented Soul, and that is a novel. And the other is a 45-day devotional called From Faith to Faith. And I'm also, guys, a mom of two children and even a real estate agent in the state of Georgia. So, whether you're joining me live or whether you're in the replay viewing this, I want you to do me a favor. Here's the favor. I want you in the comment section. I have a question, and here it is. How do you recognize when you are in a new season? Leave me your way that you recognize, and it can be multiple ways. If you have multiple ways that you recognize when you're in a new season, drop me that in the comments. Leave me your answer so I can take a look back later as well. I'm super interested to see how you guys, um, what's one thing, right? What's one thing that you use as an indicator to help you recognize that you're in a new season? So, like I said, again, I'm super, super excited for you guys to hear this one gem, to share this one gem tonight with you all about how to recognize when you're in a new season. And without further ado, I want to go ahead and jump in. But right before I do, I want you guys to do me a favor, and I'm going to put it up on the screen here as well. So it's scrolling at the bottom. What the other thing I want you to do is not only leave me a comment, but it is this: become a part of the Fruitful Gems family. Reason why is because you'll get a chance to stay connected with what I'm doing, with what our team is doing as well. Because with that being said, as I mentioned earlier, we have a blog, we have a podcast, and we even have this YouTube channel. We have so much material for you to stay connected. And even the book that I mentioned, my novel, The Fragmented Soul, is a part of this as well. We have even we do a webinar that we do, and it is based on how to go from a fragmented soul to becoming healed and whole. We actually teach on this too. So I want you to be a part of all that we do here at Fruitful Gems. And the way that you do that is you become a part of the Fruitful Gems family by going to our website and subscribing. It is www.fruitfulgems.com. I will say that one more time. Become a part of our Fruitful Gem family by going to www.fruitfulgems.com. And I hope I keep saying the right amount of W's. I promise you, I'm looking at it going, that sounds like way too many. So, guys, without further ado, let's jump right in, and feel free to also share this with a friend too, is another thing that you can do to even support us. One Without further ado, let's jump right into this gem that I really am super excited to share with you tonight. So, let me give you some background context about why I'm sharing this particular gem. I will never forget sitting in my kitchen. I was actually at the table. I remember exactly where I was now. I was sitting at the kitchen, at the dining room table, and I heard the voice of God say, "Move," right? So immediately I just chuckled to myself as my thoughts started racing back and forth rapidly. Now, let me explain something about me. For those who may or may not know, I am one of those people who, and I've mentioned it before, but definitely worth mentioning again. When God says an instruction, my brain rapidly goes to everywhere regarding that instruction. So let me give you a prime example. When God asked me to write a book, my brain goes into almost hyperdrive of, okay, so what's the context? What are we writing about? What's the chapter titles? Like, it goes super fast to the point where I have to slow myself down and go, you never stop to ask. This is me talking to myself going, you never stop to ask God, what exactly did he mean when he said write a book? So just as when he said move, I was like, ooh, as my thoughts started picking up and started racing, I started going, well, that's funny. God, you want me to move. But more than anyone, my bank account at that time, when this took place, and how much I have, what resources I even have. I even started thinking, well, where can I go? Where can I move to? I didn't know where I could go. And then the next question that popped up in my head was, God, did you forget I have two children? So moving their stuff, not only my own, but figuring all the logistics of that out just was becoming really, really overwhelming as I was asking God these rapid back to fire questions, right? Because at that time, I had just been a stay at home mom. Still hadn't really got my footing with my career, was trying to figure all of that out. But at the time, had started blogging, and originally my blog was called From Faith to Faith instead of Fruitful Gems. So I had started blogging at that time. I believe was in the middle or had already written my first book, my devotional, and was like, okay, that's all I have. I do have a little bit of book sales, but nothing so substantial to be like I could, I'm just balling out of money that I could move. Nothing like that. And at the time, I was still going to school for real estate and even looking for jobs on the side because I was trying to figure my life out, really and truthfully figuring out my life. Because being a stay at home mom, what I realized is it was working for one season, but I was coming up on a season where it wasn't going to work any longer. But um, at that time, even with the jobs, I wasn't getting really picked for the first round of interviews, but was constantly applying and applying and applying. So I was actively looking, like most people who've ever looked for a job. When you're actively looking and you put in so many resumes, I was doing that. So I was in this weird transition season is the best word that I could describe it. That transition season had me in this whole mindset of I got to move forward. I don't know how, but I got to move forward. And after sitting at the kitchen table and just reviewing all those questions I had and saying them out loud to God in rapid succession, it built up so much pressure. Each one of those questions, back to back to back, built up so much pressure and of anxiety that anxiety crept into my mind and flooded it, right? It flooded it because my brain was just in overdrive. What I didn't realize at the time, not until I moved, right? When I got more and more details. What I didn't realize when God said move, I need to sit still and get more details. Sometimes the details in that time that you're asking for those details is one to help you prepare. There's things that you can do to prepare as you wait for further instruction. But sometimes God doesn't want us to get an instruction from Him and move right away, meaning actually move on that instruction or complete that instruction. So, for instance, I'll give you a prime example. Let's say God is telling you to leave your job. That may not mean tomorrow. A lot of times we want to go and be like, okay, I need to be obedient to God right now. What I've learned with God is that's not always the case. There are some instructions that are vague enough, like even leaving your job is a vague instruction to the point where it is done that way by God for you to go back and get more details, for you to go back, get more answers, for you to ask follow up questions so that you have a better understanding of the steps that you need to take. It was not until I moved that I began to, or actually later after I moved and after I had asked the follow up questions, that I began to gain more clarity over time about my assignment and what God desired me to fulfill in my new season. The season that came literally after moving. But during that transition time, I'll give you an instance and an example. What I didn't realize before that I realized afterward was my blog that I mentioned, Fruitful Gems. In 2016, before moving, before even getting that instruction, it was called From Faith to Faith. Because at that time, in that season, that's exactly where I was with God. My relationship with God was literally built on the Bible verse that talks about from faith to faith, from glory to glory. That is all the following God and obedience to God that I really could muster in that season. I was in a season where it needed to be rebuilt, where it needed to be even raised back up as well. But as I was approaching the blog, what I realized is as I was approaching the blog, getting ready to even expire on the current platform that I was currently on, I heard God say to me, one, you need to move this to a new platform. And then two, as I received more guidance and moved it to a new platform, God even changed the name and rebranded my blog. So, what I want you to realize with this example is God not only rebrands or names businesses, but He does that same thing for people as well. And of course, the person that I'm talking about is not only is things that we have, like even our books that He calls us to, even our children that He gives us, or He can even, if you, I promise you, if you ask Him, because that's how I've even named both of my children, I would go to God and I'd ask Him, how does He want these children named? Because names matter. What we call ourselves matter. And a lot of times what we don't realize is how important this is to us transitioning from one season to the next. What that name is, meaning if that season has a new name, or what we're called to do in that season has a new name, then it gives it so much more weight, especially the ones that we receive from God. So I wanted to give you an example of a person that got renamed. That was actually Abram in the Bible, found in Genesis 17, 1 through 8 in the Message version. Abram became Abraham as well. So if you can catch kind of where I'm going, I cannot wait to share with you this one gem. You ready? Here's the one solitaire gem for tonight. It is this: new name, new identity. I'm going to say it again: a new name, a new identity. So if you're wondering, okay, connect the dots for me, Jacinta. Here's what I want you to understand. Go back to my original question. My original question was, how can you recognize what with one thing, right? How can you recognize that you're in a new season when God gives you a new name and you take on a new identity? So let me take you back to the Bible because I don't want you to just take my word for it. You will hear me say this time and time again. Genesis 17, verse 5, in the message version, I believe it is, says, "No longer shall your name be Abram, which means exalted father." And if this is not the message version, then this is the amplified. "But your name shall be Abraham, father of a multitude, for I will make you the father of nations." Abram was following God and listening to the voice of God. He had even been instructed, he was given a new name when he entered into a covenant relationship with God, which created this new agreement. The reason why he was able to do that and enter into a new covenant relationship with God and into a new agreement is because when God asked Abram to walk with him, he did and be in his presence and even follow his instructions. So much so that God even asked and instructed Abram to leave his family to go into a new place. Abram did so. It was after all that, after watching him be obedient, God eventually entered into this new covenant in Genesis chapter in chapter 17, verse 5, where he renamed him. He said, "You've been so faithful. You've been an exalted father that now I get to name you the father of a multitude." So, just as my gem that I want to give you tonight, his new name brought on a new identity because the meaning of those names changed for Abraham, right? He went from exalted father to father of a multitude. So that's what God did for me as well. Now, what does this mean for you? Let me tell you what this means for you. Your new name that gives you a new identity. It establishes you. Just as Abraham got established into a new covenant, which is an agreement with God, that's what it also does for you. Our names of not only us as people, but our businesses, of our books, of different products that we're called to create and make in the earth, right? As kingdom entrepreneurs or kingdom business owners, or even kingdom authors, kingdom writers, kingdom creators, our names and how we identify a thing, it gives new meaning and new character and can even shape our futures of the product or the business we are called to steward. This is seen in the earth realm, even as to why we don't call our cat a dog or our dog a cat. The naming even of animals even has significance and even importance, just as the naming of human beings, our businesses, our books, our brands, everything, because it gives us new identity. It gives us an identity. Now, let me bring this more up to date so you're not just looking at this from a biblical perspective. As I mentioned to you regarding my blog back in 2016 was from faith to faith. And it was funny is I got a reminder, right, from Facebook. And when it reminds you of old posts from years past, Facebook recently sent me a reminder of a video that I made announcing that 2 years ago, my blog's name had changed from faith to faith to Fruitful Gems. Little did I know that more would change, more identity would grow surrounding my blog during that time as well. When I look back at that Facebook post from 2 years ago, or excuse me, that Facebook video from 2 years ago, I was shocked at how much growth because not only had the blog gotten a new name change, I was able to write a second book as well that got connected with the content of the new blog and the update direction because I had even been asking God, I said, God, this from faith to faith is great. But in the season that I'm getting ready to go to, I said, I need something more niche. I need something more specified for a specific audience, and God carried me through. When I tell you, God is so intentional when it comes to things having a new name, and it brings on a new identity. He did that for me. This has given my blog a new direction and a new path, one that I was not expecting him to even take it to. So, guys, I hope that this one nugget has helped you and will continue to help you. Now, let me say this. There are plenty other ways that you can also tell, because God is not just a one trick pony, shall I say. God is a multifaceted God. And with that being said, this is not the only way that you can recognize that you're in a new season, but it's one of the ways that He wanted me to share with you tonight. So I definitely pray that it helps you, especially if you're transitioning into a new season. That if you're hearing Him say, "Oh, your brand has a new name, I want to give it a new name," understand that it's coming with a new identity. And in coming with a new identity, He has a new direction to give you. So please, 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 please be mindful that as He does that, it is time to ask those follow up questions. Because just like I had to do when He told me to move, I had to ask those follow up questions so I could understand, where was I moving to? Where did you need me located? And things like that. Because that would shape my identity. That would shape my surroundings, right? Just as I mentioned that Abraham, who got renamed from Abram to Abraham, he had to do the same with him. And as he walked closely with God and continued to obey, that's when that new covenant was established of a new name and a new identity. So I pray that this has blessed you. And if it has, in order to receive more gems just like this, and to join me even for another episode of Solitaire Gems where you get notified, what I want you to do is, like it says on the screen scrolling below, become a part of the Fruitful Gems family by going to www.fruitfulgems.com, and that way you can get on and subscribe to be on our mailing list so you can get notified of when we go live, when we share podcasts, when we do our webinar, and everything in and of between as well. We want to stay connected to you so that you can get more gems like this, more nuggets of wisdom, and even encouragement, so you can become whole in your mind, your body, and spirit with the 9 fruits of God's Spirit. Now, guys, like I said, thank you so much for taking time out of your Thursday to listen to this. And for those watching the replay, I really appreciate you as well. Until next time, join me for the next live next Thursday night at 8 p.m. We'll actually be doing a new topic series for the month. So join me then to come back and see what we'll be talking about. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.